Hello, Prayan. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, Sharmi. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. So our next guest is Mr. Anirban Chaudhary, venture capitalist at Bloom Venture. Can we have Mr. Anirban on the stage, please?
Hi, Shravani.
Hello,
Hi,
Anirban.
Pleasure to be here.
So, welcome, Anirban. Our next guest is Mr. Pankaj Mitra, Investment and Acquisition, Cisco. Can we have Mr. Pankaj on the stage, please?
Hi there.
Hello, Mr. Pankaj. Welcome here. So our next guest is Mr. Shirish Shivani, Executive Director and Fund Manager at UNest Venture Capital. Can we have Mr. Shirish on the stage, please? Hello, Mr. Shirish. Welcome.
Hello everyone. How are you?
So this session will be moderated by Mr. Anupam Saronwala, advisor, mentor, and co-lead at NASSCOM Deep Tech Club. Can we have Mr. Anupam on the stage, please? Hello, Mr. Anupam.
Thank you, Shravani.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome to this session. The topic is very interesting, cybersecurity startups, and this is from the lens of global investors. So we are delighted to have a very distinguished panel. It is a combination of India-based VCs, global VCs, and corporate venture capitalists. But before I ask them to introduce themselves, a quick introduction of mine. I am part of NASSCOM Deep Tech Club, which I am co-leading. But besides that, I'm also an angel investor. I do invest in startups and mentor them. But before that, for a long period of my professional career, I was with IBM Research, taking new technologies to market. And as I mentioned to you, we have the partners from Excel, from Bloom, UNest, which is one of the leading India-based VCs. And also we have a great mix from corporate VCs. So we have Pankaj from Cisco. And I will obviously ask them to introduce themselves. But just for the audience, we are going to run this session for about 30 minutes, where the panelists are going to share their global experiences, as well as India-focused startups from a lens of cybersecurity. And I know some of you may have attended morning sessions. One housekeeping thing, that there is a Q&A icon on the right side. Please continue asking your questions. We want to make it as interactive as possible. Even though I have one or two questions after we go through a round of introductions, but we will love to get your questions, because this session is primarily meant for you to engage and interact with the global investors and ask them insightful questions. So I will start requesting the panelists for introduction. We will try to keep it 2 minutes each for introduction, where I like them to talk about their organization, profile of startups they invest in general, but a special focus on cybersecurity startups and what is typically the ticket size. And this way, at least you will get to know their profile. And if some of the startups and audience are looking at investors, you know then whom to connect with. So starting with Anirban from Bloom Ventures. Anirban, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Thanks, Anupam. So I look at deep tech, SaaS, and healthcare investments at Bloom Ventures. We are currently investing out of our third fund, which is a $100 million fund. We have around $250 million of AUM, and we are just raising our fourth fund. We've been fairly industry agnostic, but there's been a large focus on deep tech and SaaS as well, right? Some of our investments that you might have heard of are Unacademy, Dunzo, ClassPlus, Locust, and on the deep tech side, there's Grey Orange Robotics, Tricog, Pixel, and many more. With respect to cybersecurity, we've done one investment out of our third fund, It's closest to cybersecurity. It's a SOC 2 compliance automation solution. It's called Sprinto. It's a global play used for companies to become SOC 2 compliant. And we typically come in with $750K to a $1.5 million check to start with, and obviously play in the follow-on rounds. Over to you, Priyank.
Go ahead, Priyank.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Priyank. I represent Axel. Axel has been investing in India over the last 13 odd years, but we are a global firm. We manage close to $15 billion globally, and in India, we are investing out of our sixth fund, which is a $550 million fund. And check sizes for us range from $100,000 all the way to $20 million in the first check. Some of the companies which you might have heard of from our stable, we were the seed investors in Flipkart, seed investors in Swiggy, seed investors in Urban Company, and the like. And we have announced one unicorn yesterday, one more unicorn to our stable yesterday, which is BrowserStack. So it became a $4 billion company yesterday. But having said that, the special thing for us is we typically write the first check or very early stage checks, seed or Series A. So most of the time we are coming into companies, like I said, with $500,000 to $1 million checks, or actually $2 to $3 million checks. With respect to cybersecurity, we have a very big portfolio globally. So we have invested in 20 odd companies in the last 6 to 7 years. I think our biggest cybersecurity company is CrowdStrike, which went IPO and is now valued close to $20 billion. I have personally written 2 checks in cybersecurity companies in the last 1 year in India. So one is a company called Securden based out of Chennai, which is in privileged access management, and another company called Project Discovery, which is open source DevSecOps cybersecurity company. Thanks. Pankaj, over to you.
Hey, thank you,
Pankaj,
Priyank. And good to meet everyone here. So I look at Cisco's investments and acquisitions in India. I also look at our services, acquisitions and investments globally. And we're a strategic investor. Typically, we follow on VCs. A lot of my friends in this panel included here. And we deploy between 1 and 5 million, invest around 1 and 5 million, typically Series A or later. Cisco invests about $100 to $200 million globally, annually, in startups. And really our value add is our go-to-market. So we have a very structured approach where we sit down with each portfolio company, introduce them to our customers, our channel partners, our sales force, showcase them in our events like Cisco Live, which is our biggest annual event of the year. To get more visibility, to get more leads, and to have a strategic tie-in with every single portfolio company that we invest in. Our biggest security acquisition has been Duo Security that we acquired a couple of years back for $2.4 billion. And the latest acquisition has been Kenna Security, which is a vulnerability management company. And we're very active in our investments. We recently invested in a company called Styra, which is a OPA policy, cloud native policy management company. And we have a few other exciting ones, which will hopefully hit the news soon. And I guess that's it for Cisco. Happy to be here and really looking forward to some good Indian cybersecurity companies coming out and attacking the global market. Over to you, Girish.
Yeah, thank you, Pankaj. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Girish Shivani. I am the Executive Director and Fund Manager at YourNest. We are an early stage venture capital fund focused on deep tech, B2B opportunities, that are building global plays out of India. Cybersecurity falls right in the sweet spot from our investment thesis perspective, because we are looking at opportunities which have a certain amount of IP and are solving for problems that are global in nature and large enough. We've seen close to 250 odd cybersecurity opportunities in the last 5-6 years. It's a defined investment thesis for us. Unfortunately, we have not been able to find a company that we could potentially invest in. I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to the pitch sessions during the, rest of the day as well, and figure out if there is something interesting from an opportunity set perspective that we could look at from investments perspective. So happy to be here.
Thank you, Girish. Thank you, everyone, for introducing your firms and what investments you have made. So I was looking at Q&A box. I don't see any questions yet. So maybe people are just warming up. So let me kind of ask a question as an icebreaker to each one of you, and we will go round robin. So I think Girish kind of mentioned about the pipeline. So it will be good, I think, for the audience to know that from an India startup ecosystem viewpoint, what kind of a pipeline you see of cybersecurity startups? Is it focused on a particular domain, or is it more cross-domain side? Also, when you evaluate cybersecurity startups, are there any certain attributes which you look for, which are distinct, meaning beyond what you may be looking at any, for lack of a better word, conventional startups? There's fintech, there is health tech. So, but cybersecurity is something which kind of the solutions get embedded in the overall kind of solution. So what is something specific you may be looking at? And maybe I'll start with Anirvan. And so Anirvan, you want to share some of your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. So Anupam, I think it's a great question. With respect to the pipeline, I think there's a vast spread. Like you see solutions in network security, cloud security, data security, etc. But there's a larger focus that I've seen on network security and identity, right? In both, primarily on the software side, there are a few hardware plays also that we're seeing in network security. However, I think with respect to what our interest areas are, we have a strong interest in anything that's building on top of an emerging technology, but I'll get to that a bit later. But with respect to the attributes that you spoke about, I think it's really important to have a product focus. What we've noticed is that there's a large service element to most of the businesses, and a lot of the focus is on Indian markets. I think there needs to be a shift towards global markets, and it needs to be a product focus. In addition, I believe there's a lag between a technology that's being built out for global markets and the companies being built in India. What I mean by that, for example, Kato Network started SASE probably back in 2015. We've seen a lot of players in SASE in 2018. So what I'm trying to say is there's a lag between a technology coming up in the global markets and then being built out of India. That needs to be bridged. But the other attribute that we would like to see is building for a particular category, not trying to displace incumbents, right? The good thing about cybersecurity is every category is large enough to build $100 to $200 million business, right? And the other attribute would be, one founder based in the US who could have a very strong ability of building large tech businesses, some sort of experience in that, and a great tech founder building out of India. That would be the ideal company. And also another point that I wanted to cover is, probably I can cover it later, but I would love to cover it. Every shift in cybersecurity has been because of the evolution of a new technology, right? Which is bringing in new vulnerabilities. For example, the cloud brought in the need for cloud native security. The IoT revolution brought in the need for IoT endpoint security. And the same thing we are seeing in API security, right? The API revolution causing the need for API security. The next could be quantum safe encryption, right? So I think founders would need to build on top of some of these mega trends. And I think forums like these would really help to identify some of these mega trends, as well as the experience of global companies like Cisco and the likes of that can bring in the mega trends into the Indian ecosystem. So that's what I had to add. I'll keep it short.
Excellent, everyone. I think you have summarized it really well. So Priyank, you want to share some of your thoughts on this?
Sure. So I think very similar to Anirvan with respect to pipeline, I think we are all seeing the same companies. To be honest, the number of companies in India, I think DSCI does a good job of tracking all of them down. So essentially a lot of network security, a lot of IAM or identity management, and actually I've seen a lot more. I think the companies that are able to sell in India are vulnerability assessment and threat intelligence companies. So they make money from the Indian customers because a lot of banks are afraid of having their customer information available on darknet. So those are the few. But interestingly, for example, we invested in a company with Ida.io, which is in trusted execution space. So just a slight difference from Anirvan's point. I mean, we have seen some companies evolve at the same time in the valley, IP,
Super.
which is similar. But yes, it's a very handful. It's not a mass. It's not like cutting edge. I have seen till now as much as I would like to. And a lot of people are going after already existing proven models in the West, which I think are harder to displace from India. To build trust. I think that's the catch. But there are newer areas, like cybersecurity in blockchain, cybersecurity in Kubernetes or DevSecOps. Those areas I think are being explored by startups, and I would really hope people start looking in those areas as well. The one area, though, I think it's a nature of finding customers. People end up spending a lot of time in India on SMB cybersecurity. SMB products, and what I found, when I talk to my colleagues in the US and globally, it's not an area which is looked upon very favorably by international investors because typically the check sizes are smaller. It takes a long time to build a big business. There are some successes, but not a lot of successes. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks. Pankaj, you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, so in terms of pipeline, nothing more to add beyond what Anirvan and Priyank have shared, but just on the profile of the companies that we meet. I think, first of all, from a team and founder perspective, I think we like to see domain expertise in the founders, and which usually means some years of experience in the cybersecurity space, a very good understanding of the space, because the space itself is very fragmented and very crowded, even from a global perspective. And as borders are dissolving, some of these global companies are coming to India and selling their products to enterprises, sometimes to SMBs, but mostly to enterprises. So in this kind of arena, I think 2 things become very important. The founder really needs to know his or her domain very, very well and specialize in it. We typically come across some companies who are bundling together solutions at a low price. That's not a sustainable business model, even though they might get some traction, particularly with Indian SMBs to start with. And the second thing is around just the global competition, which is the founders really need to know, again, with borders dissolving, how competitive their offering is globally. With Israeli startups now actually coming to India and selling to India, for instance, in addition to US and Europe-based startups, the competition has never been more global, and so that is really important. Where global founders, founders are global by nature. As soon as they're born, they become global by nature, and they really need to make a decision on where they want to focus. If it's India only, if it's Southeast Asia, or if it's really attacking the Holy Grail, which is the US and Europe.
Thank you. Girish?
Yeah, I think building on what Pankaj said from a global place perspective, I think IP is extremely critical. A lot of time we've seen companies which are, trying to build something similar to what already exists, and therefore fringing on some other people's IP, etc. Especially with the kind of activity and fragmentation, all the other panelists spoke about in the cybersecurity market, becomes make or break, right? If you don't have sufficient, ring fencing of the model, through IP and, through, trade secrets or whatever else, it becomes very difficult to build a large, sustainable global play. And we've seen some of the companies, some of the founders, because a lot of these founders that we are seeing are actually coming from services mindsets. For them, they are not product first founders, as I call them. And that kind of that shift between services mindset to a product mindset becomes very, very difficult to cross. And so until unless we start seeing product first founders coming in with deep sustainable IP, that is truly protectable. And as Anirban said, newer technologies are displacing the need for security. With the slew of cyber hacks that have happened in the last 6-9 months, and the amount of data that is available on dark web for both Indian and global companies, it's just kind of disconcerting that nobody's been able to build, for example, a product which can do penetration testing, in an automated manner, or vulnerability assessment, because these are basic things that companies will need to bring into their infosec frameworks for them to be be truly global in their place. And that's something that we are seeing missing from a domain perspective.
Excellent. So if I have to summarize, I think what I'm hearing is that product mindset and product focus is extremely important. Second one is global markets, and founder should have the domain expertise, and preferably, because it is global play, at least the domain guy must be US based. The technical guys and the team can be in India, and differentiated IP. I think that those are the key takeaways for me, and I think all of them tremendous inputs. And this differentiated IP also, I think, brings me to one question which I see on the Q&A box, which has been asked by Malik Bagadia, which is related to innovative security design as a startup. And he also is talking about how do you protect innovative security designs which could be easily replicable. And so I think it is in general, how do you protect differentiated IP, especially related to security designs? So whosoever would like to take up this question, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this.
Sure, Girish.
IP does not necessarily mean you go and file a patent, right? IP could also sit in the code that you develop, or IP could also sit in the model that you take to market, and therefore the founders will have to think differently in terms of what kind of what is the core IP that they want to create and how they should go about it. It requires serious thought. It requires engaging with a relevant IP expert to be able to get to that level of comfort that whatever you are building is truly protectable, whether through IP or without IP, without a patent in that sense. That brings to the other question, that other point that I think Priyank made, or Pankaj made, about the fact that a lot of founders, their understanding of their competitive landscape is leaves a lot to be desired. I don't blame them fully, because this is a highly evolving play, and therefore it is difficult to keep track of what's happening in every part of the world. But generally speaking, even amongst the top 5-10 competitors that you face on a day-to-day basis, if you are in a brownfield kind of an implementation. Also, some of that stuff we've seen, people not giving sufficient focus on, both from a pricing perspective as well as a product form, feature, functionality, differentiation perspective. And that, if done properly, can actually give you a very good insight in terms of the white space that is there in the domain that you could technically go after and build a sustainable, model.
Great. Yep. Excellent point, Girish. So there's another question which Lakshmi Das has asked. Do you invest in Kubernetes-based cybersecurity company in India, like we do at Prophase Technologies? So any of the investors may like to answer that?
Yeah, I think all of us on the call would like to do it. So I think he should reach out to all of us.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. So I think I'm hearing each one of them is interested, and they are already smiling. So Lakshmi, my suggestion will be, at the end of the session, they are going to tell you how to connect with them. So feel free to kind of reach out to them and see if they have an interest in investing in such a venture? Then there's another question. Are you seeing strong interest in quantum computing-based security solutions of late? This question is being asked by Vishwas. Anybody who has been dealing with quantum computing-based security would like to take that?
I can go first, and then probably I can pass it on to someone else. So absolutely, I mean, if you think about, quantum computing, the way it's going to change security is tremendous, right? I mean, most of the encryption methodologies that are used nowadays or have been used over the years will become irrelevant. So we've seen a bunch of quantum random number generator plays. At the same time, we are seeing satellite-based quantum security kind of plays where you're generating the public and private key. I mean, the public key is being generated on the satellite and then it's passed on. But the biggest challenge has been, I mean, like you can create quantum safe encryption as of today, but no one knows how many qubits of computers are going to be created in the future. So whatever encryption you create now in the future might become irrelevant again. We've seen a bunch of plays. There's QNU Labs, there's StackBit, and few others, right? We've seen a few plays in that space, but also quantum computing. A lot of folks say it's 10 years away, but we strongly believe that it might come in sooner than we can imagine. So definitely an area of interest. So we pass on our coordinates at the end of the call. But Priyank would love to your views after that, because I saw you nodding.
No, I think Pankaj is better suited because he is seeing it from vantage of Cisco, where quantum computing is actually getting into the network layer first, right? So I think from my perspective, the only thing I have to add is I think everything is very early in India right now.
Yes.
But I'll let Pankaj add the global perspective there.
Hey, thanks, Priyank. So look, 3 things in quantum security, right, to think of it. I think the first is key management, like what Anirban has said, right, which is around random number generation, other forms of key management, which is how do you just design a better key? How do you manage that better? I think number 2 is the key distribution, right? And this is where QKD type solutions come in, which is, okay, you have some key, but data in transit may be intercepted by a man-in-the-middle attack. So how do you ensure that there's quantum safety in that data transit, right? So that's number 2. I think number 3 is, and QKD solutions are traditionally reasonably expensive, and they have some technical limitations as well, which globally the world over is trying to solve. But there are physics limitations, right? There are only so many miles of QKD fiber that you can lay before you need some kind of a repeater or a booster. And as soon as you introduce a repeater or booster into the network, you have another attack surface, unfortunately, which defeats the whole point of QKD in the first place, right? And the third one is software solutions. So, there are globally some software companies who are attacking cryptography with quantum safe, cryptography solutions as well. So it's a more software driven approach to key distribution and management rather than hardware or quantum random number generators or QKD solutions. So those are the 3 areas, and we've spent quite a bit of time globally looking at all of these 3 areas. From a go-to-market perspective, so this is on a technology perspective. From a go-to-market perspective, I think as Priyank said, it's close to the network layer. And so I think founders should really think about whether they want to go it alone, which is sell their equipment or software or solutions, or does this become a feature in a Cisco router, for instance, right? And that again is hard to do because some of those QKD boxes are like microwave oven size, right? It needs a lot of miniaturization, and again there are global companies who are working on quantum level chipsets that can be integrated and miniaturized. So that's the other trend that we're seeing. But agree, I mean, quantum computing is still a while away. I don't know if it's 10 years or if it's 5 years, but it's still some time, but it's coming. And I think we should all be prepared for that.
Wonderful. So there's an interesting question. And again, I'll see whichever panelist wants to take it up. It says, VCs too often focus only on high margin, obviously big markets that they can relate to and understand from some personal experience. What's your take and how VCs should broaden their perspective? So it seems like Debashish, Jyoti Prakash thinks all you guys have a very narrow perspective, So maybe one of you can take it up. And I don't think it is related purely to cybersecurity, but in general, that will you only look at which is big markets, high margin, and or you are open to looking at something which is differentiated? Anyone of you can take it.
I am happy to take this.
Sure,
I think this basically boils down to the economic model for the VC industry, right? Typically at the stage which we come in, which is pre-series A, stage, mortality, 2-year mortality is about 50%. So off the block, if your opportunity is not able to, at least on paper, show me that I can do a 10x, 15x exit in the next 5 years, it does not work for us. Because if you do the math in terms of how the capital gets allocated and how what kind of return expectations are from our investors, you would realize that if you don't do 4x, 5x, 6x kind of a number on the total capital you raise, it does not work for us. And assuming you invest in 15, 20 companies, if off the block you don't do 10x, 15x, returns, it does not work. And therefore, large global markets, large margins are de rigueur from an investor expectation perspective. And I think that's what it ultimately boils down to.
Yeah, but flip the question. Sorry, here, right? If I were to start a business, why will I start a business in a low margin, small time category? Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you should start a business in a large business. Like, so you see, all of us are trying to make a lot of money, right? Entrepreneurship. Like, why would you say, "Okay, I'm happy with a 1 crore per month, 1 crore per year kind of a revenue business"? Right? That should not be the ambition of a startup, at least in my mind. I mean, these are good businesses. But they are not, to Girish's point, they're not VC fundable businesses.
Absolutely.
These are very good lifestyle businesses. They will become sustainable, but they don't provide exit to investors. So
there's a second part to the question. Sorry, there's a second part of the question, which is VC ignorance, or about, VCs invest only in areas. Now, I think that's important. I think it's a valid point. Like, see, you see cybersecurity. Why is not somebody else from Accel coming and speaking at this conference? Because I'm spending my time looking at the space, and cybersecurity is a complicated space. I also don't understand a lot of things. So somebody has to invest time and energy. So I think my advice to the gentleman who's asking this question is, please find out the right person in the organization. VCs are generally very approachable. All information is written on the website. You can see their background. You can see the kind of, and they are giving talks. So do a little bit of research. You'll find the right investor for yourself and approach them.
Yeah.
And just right, if I may just, add just one comment to that, right? I think all the investors here will agree that, look, the person who has the greatest domain knowledge in the industry that you're targeting is you, the founder. It's not the VC, it's not the investor, it's not a corporate like Cisco in most cases. It's you, the founder. So I think the onus is a little bit on you to also educate the investor and talk about why this technology is differentiated, why this is an interesting market, because I think that's usually how the dynamics play out. There will never be anybody, hopefully, if you're doing your job well, there will never be anybody who is as deep in this particular sector that you're addressing as you are.
Absolutely. So
if I can...
Sorry, anyone. We have 1.5 minutes left.
Sure.
And there are a lot of interesting questions coming up, but I'm going to pick one last question, which I think will be of interest to a lot of founders here. That do you think security will become autonomous with AI and ML becoming prime time? So I think the question is more coming from AI, ML being like, the buzzword and the real thing today. Will security become automated to that extent? And how do VCs look at it if there is automation for security-related startups? And any one of you, maybe Anirvan, I'll ask to answer the question if you're comfortable, Anirvan, because you wanted to add something else.
Yeah, I want to add something to the previous point, but I'll try to add that.
Absolutely, that's why. And then we will go for a closing round.
Sure. No, so from an autonomous point of view, fully autonomous, we've not seen too many players in India out of doing that, but globally there are players that are absolutely bringing in AI into network or cloud security, right? And we've seen a few players on the authentication side that are using AI ML to make the authentication reporting autonomous. If you think about most of the IAM solutions, they're essentially an access management solution. But when it comes to monitoring all of that, I think that there are categories that are being created over there where you are looking at authentication and access in a continuous manner. And for that, the only way you could do that in an effective manner using AIML. And you would see that in cloud security as well. And Priyank spoke about DevSecOps as well. So I think you would see that in a lot of plays out there. But I'll leave it at that. And I would love to hear all of the other panelists' views.
Okay, wonderful. So
I can jump in.
Oh, sorry,
Anupam. I'll just say this very quickly that, cybersecurity is the only sector that I'm aware of in investments, which is where innovation is driven by adversarial reaction. What I mean by that is that there is an adversary on the other side who is innovating, and we, on the good side, if you will, need to respond to that adversary. So my simple point is that you might have all the AI ML in the world at your disposal, but at the end of the day, nothing will beat human ingenuity in combating that.
Absolutely. Very well said, Pankaj. I know we are way out of time. There's so many.
Just one comment, Anupam. Natural stupidity will beat artificial intelligence hands down always.
Lovely. I think that is a great byline for this session. And I know there are a lot of interesting questions. It has been a great session. You all really want to thank the panelists. But before we close out on this session, there is one question from Suresh from Australia. That do you guys extend your investments into Australia? That's a specific question, but I will let it be answered along with the basic question, which I'm sure audience is interested in. How do they connect with each one of you? Either you can put it in the chat box or just say people can note it down, because I think some of the audience will like to approach you with their great startup plans, and so that they can become your partners in their startup journey. So Australia, maybe you can answer first and then your contact. And this time we can start with Girish and go the other way around. So go ahead, Girish.
Yeah. Yes. So we are a domestic fund. As long as there is an India play to the Australia company, we are happy to look at it. As domestic fund, we are not allowed to purely invest in companies which don't have any India connect. We have a central deal flow email ID called yournest@yournest.in, where you can write to us. It is our commitment to you that if you write to us, we will respond back. The other way to do it is we have a call to action on the homepage where you can submit your proposal online. That's typically a faster way to reaching out to us. And as I said, we will respond to everyone who writes into us.
Wonderful. Priyank? Can't hear you, Priyank.
Thank you, on mute.
Yeah, go ahead.
We do invest in Australia since we are a global fund, and you can write to me, priyank@axel.com. I've typed my email ID in the Q&A, so you can take it from there.
Thank you, Priyank. Pankaj?
Hey, we're a global company. Australia is definitely an interesting market for us. We invested in a company called Secure Code Warrior in Australia in the DevSecOps space, which has been killing it, actually. Feel free to get in touch with me, pamitra@cisco.com. Emails in the chat group.
Wonderful. Anirvan?
Sure. So when it comes to, similar to Girish, although nothing stops us from investing in Australia, but we would generally invest in a company which has an India element into their business, either a team operating out of India or the market being in India. But then if the market's in India, is not that exciting because the larger market is in the global arena. So there needs to be an India element to the business. My email ID is anirvan@bloom.vc. I put in the chat box. In addition, I'll just put a thesis that we built out so that you can know our interest areas as well. So you can reach out accordingly. If you're building something in that area, please reach out.
Wonderful. So thank you very much, all the panelists. I think this has been a great session, and I hope audience has some good takeaways, and wishing the audience attending the rest of the conference. So thanks a ton. Thank you very much. Shravani, will you take it over from here, or how does it work? Shravani is there. Shravani, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So thank you, Mr. Girish, Mr. Priyank, Mr. Anirvan, Mr. Pankaj for this wonderful discussion. And thank you, Mr. Anupam, for moderating this session beautifully. Thank you so much, everyone.